So I think quantum stocks are pretty overpriced at the moment. However, that didn't stop me from buying calls on Rigetti as well as a couple microcap quantum names. If you're confused and want to know why, here's a summary. Daddy Jensen will pump up my stonks. Hopefully. So, let's talk about it. Quantum names like Rigetti are up 12 times since 6 months ago. There is no doubt they are overpriced at the moment, given the lack of commercial use cases and revenue streams to justify their existing valuation. Moreover, based on the big brains in the field, actual PhDs and such, the general consensus seems to be that commercial use cases is still a ways away. But that didn't stop your boy from aping into these quantum names. And the reason may surprise you. There's several key tailwinds and catalysts that I believe is set up well for quantum names in the near term. The most significant catalyst is Jensen's Quantum Day on March 20th. This is significant, but not for the reason you may think. To fully appreciate the entire picture, we'll need to zoom out to January this year, when Jensen mentioned quantum computing is 15 to 30 years away. Unsurprisingly, this sent the quantum names down 70% in a couple days. Now, regardless of Jensen's feelings and whether he felt some sort of guilt or remorse, what's undeniable is that he subsequently organized Quantum Day on March 20th and invited industry leaders in the quantum field to attend. Now, we have to ask ourselves, is Jensen going to shit on quantum again during the Quantum Day event? The answer is pretty clearly no. He's going to speak very positively about it, especially given that Nvidia has their own quantum division and is actively recruiting for it. With the context and background out of the way, let's focus on why this is so significant for the quantum names. Given that quantum stocks got wrecked in January due to Jensen's comments, the market is now keenly aware of the impact Jensen's words will have on the quantum sector, to the downside as we have learned in the past, but also equally to the upside as well. This is significant because, in my opinion, this event will be on the radar of a significant amount of investors and traders, meaning these quantum tickers will be quote-unquote in play. And as a result, I'd expect significant interest and volume on these tickers this week. Furthermore, if we place ourselves in the shoes of an average market participant, I think a logical conclusion most would reach is the following. Jensen's comments wrecked quantum names before. Obviously, he would not speak negatively on quantum again in this upcoming event, especially given Nvidia announced the debut of Quantum Day for the first time after Jensen's negative comments towards quantum. To summarize, the world's most valuable company is hosting their first ever Quantum Day event. The CEO's comments previously massively moved quantum tickers. We should anticipate that people will believe the CEO will speak positively about the sector, therefore pumping quantum names. And finally, all the quantum names are very small in market cap, meaning it doesn't take a whole lot to massively move these names. That said, Quantum Day isn't the only positive I see in terms of tailwinds and catalysts. First, if we analyze the quantum names' performance in the context of the recent market correction from the tariff war, they actually didn't perform that badly. I mean, sure, the quantum tickers were down around 50% from their peaks. However, keep in mind that established companies like Robinhood, Reddit, and AppLovin were down just as much, if not more. In all honesty, I am really surprised at how well the quantum tickers held up during this recent period of market drawdown, given that risk-on names were getting hammered left and right. I genuinely expected a larger drawdown for these quantum tickers. I figured maybe 80% was reasonable. Obviously, that didn't happen. The fact that these quantum names were only down 50% shows me that there is still significant demand and interest in these tickers, regardless of my personal opinion on how far away I think quantum is. It is very clear to me that the market has spoken and there is significant demand for these names, and that they're not just a flash in a pan textbook pump and dump in the traditional sense, because otherwise it would have happened already amidst the recent market drawdown. Next, let's talk about short interest. Unsurprisingly, the short interest in the quantum tickers are very high. This is a great setup for a couple reasons. First, it incentivizes the MOAS crowd to join in the run-up to Quantum Day, because they can't pass up the opportunity to squeeze the quote-unquote evil shorts. And more importantly, the actual shorts in these quantum names will potentially want to hedge their position going into quantum day because of the reasons I outlined previously, due to the potential upside impact quantum day will have on these tickers. I would imagine the shorts are well aware of the upcoming volatility and upside risk, more so than most people. So I suspect that they would likely hedge to avoid getting caught with their pants down in the event of potentially getting short squeezed. Next, there's precedents for big industry events pumping related tickers. A recent example is the robotics companies all getting hella pumped going into the CES event on January 7th this year. You can see several tickers like XBot, Rigetti Robotics, and Serve Robotics all massively pumping going into this event. I think sometimes the markets are pretty regarded and you don't need to overcomplicate or overthink it. Oh, these tickers have robotics in their names. Going into a robotics event? Let's send these. It's literally that simple sometimes, which I actually find super hilarious because of how silly and stupid it is. Next, this setup reminds me of when I aped into Lucid the day after the SPAC merger with CCIV broke in Bloomberg. In both cases, the valuation is very, very rich for quantum names today and Lucid back then. In both cases, there is significant retail interest and a clear thesis for both. For Lucid, that was retail FOMOing and looking for the next Tesla. For quantum names, it's also people FOMOing off of the hype generated by big tech, like Google's quantum chip Willow, and Microsoft saying that 2025 is the year to become quantum ready, and subsequently announcing their own quantum chip. Finally, the last tailwind I see is that the overall markets are pretty oversold in the short term from a technical perspective. Moreover, there's a ton of puts that were open recently, and we know that the market makers love to collect their premiums, which means pump it and potentially a dead cat bounce going into next week to wreck the put holders. This matters because these high beta names like quantum will likely kick a pump if the overall market pumps. Now, with that said, I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't discuss the negatives and risks. First, these quantum names at today's prices are very expensive from a fundamental perspective. You'll know what I mean if you looked into their metrics like price to sales and price to earnings ratios. Second, if markets continue to fade and dump amidst the Trump tariff and Doge layoff uncertainty, these tickers will be hit extra hard. Third, there's the possibility that quantum day generates no hype and ends up being a nothing burger, which is definitely possible. And fourth, these are tiny, tiny companies, and it will not take a whole lot to move these to the downside. Finally, I just want to conclude with a warning. It should be pretty obvious by now, but these are speculative microcap companies with massive downside. Let me repeat that. This play is hella risky. Please note, I'm only sharing what I'm doing and my research and thought process. Please, do your own research. This is not financial advice. Is there anything I missed or should have considered? Please let me know. Cheers.